Amazing transformation. Millionaire discovers little girl's crutch, touching the hearts of 1 mil. Jonathan Kane stood at the edge of the community garden that morning, a crisp breeze threading through the trees. He didn't want to be there. His hands, once accustomed to tracing blueprints and expertly crafted designs, now ached with the effort of rough labor, something he had long sidestepped in pursuit of wealth and prestige. The project, a simple vegetable garden, seemed beneath him, and the volunteers nearby chattered about their weekend plans. He felt like an imposter among them. Yet here he was, the successful architect, reduced to shoveling dirt. As he pushed the shovel into the ground, his mind began to wander, filling the silence with echoes of his past. It was then that something caught his eye: a crutch leaning against a gnarled old tree, splattered with vibrant paint, as if it were a forgotten piece of art. It jolted him, sending memories rippling through him. A pang of nostalgia struck, and he recalled his childhood, carefree days spent drawing and dreaming on the streets, days overshadowed by his current, gilded cage. He hesitated, a knot tightening in his stomach. What was it doing there? He approached the crutch, brushing his fingers against the colorful splatter. The crutch belonged to a little girl named Lily, he soon learned, a girl with a sparkling imagination whose art was her voice. But she was more than just a girl, she was an embodiment of resilience. Just as he faced the relentless pressure of maintaining his image, Lily faced the harsh realities of life, her family struggling as he basked in the glow of financial stability. Why was he drawn to her story? Was it guilt? Curiosity? The desire to make a meaningful connection he hadn't recognized he longed for? Before he could unravel the thoughts, a voice pierced through. "Hey Kane, are you really signing up to work with that girl? You, the guy with all the money?" His peers laughed, their words like cold daggers. The question echoed in his mind, crowding out rational thought. What motive could he assign to himself? Did he become an architect to help, or just to elevate his reputation? He felt trapped, emotions collapsing around him like an old building in need of renovation. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The laughter echoed in his mind long after he left the garden, a haunting reminder of the divisions that plagued his life. What did it matter if he wanted to help Lily? He was grasping at straws, clinging to a fleeting sense of purpose. As he did research, his heart raced with determination, yet doubt clawed at him. Should he push her to succeed in a world that demanded perfection? Could he risk her passion for an idealized future? Each question loomed larger, an unyielding weight on his shoulders. Lily's art sparked the dormant creativity inside him. Yet, every time he tried to connect, he felt the disapproval of his peers, the whispers following him like shadows. What if he failed? What if he ruined the one precious thing she had? As he prepared for the competition they had talked about, the air crackled with tension, each moment stretching thin. It circled around him, suffocating, refusing to let the resolve he was trying to build settle. Jonathan was on the verge of unveiling the depths of their relationship just as his confidence felt almost tangible. But then came the crushing realization: failure seemed inevitable, looming just beyond the horizon, and he didn't know if he was capable of forging a new path. Would Lily's spirit shine, or would he extinguish it in his quest for redemption? All of it swirled in a breaching tide of fear and uncertainty, a storm ready to break forth. He was standing on the precipice, heart thundering, not knowing if he would fly or fall. The moment hung heavily in the air, the only certainty being that he wasn't finished exploring the complexities waiting for him and Lily in their intertwined futures. Jonathan stared at the crutch for what felt like an eternity, its colors vibrant yet haunting against the backdrop of his memory. Doubt twisted in him. He had spent years perfecting his image, molding his life into a formidable facade of success. Now, standing amidst the gentle murmurs of laughter and labor around him, he questioned who he truly was. The weight of expectation both from himself and the world bore down, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was on unsteady ground. He had entered the garden under the guise of philanthropy, of ambition to mentor, but reality nipped at his heels. Did he genuinely wish to support Lily, or was it an effort to soothe his own conscience? The question bubbled at the back of his mind as he straightened, feeling the sun on his face, its warmth almost mocking against the chill that had settled in his heart. Determined to sift through his murky intentions, Jonathan returned to his daydreams of being an architect who made a difference. When had his dreams become entangled with greed? He realized he had inadvertently silenced the voice of creativity thriving in the child he was now bound to. Every moment spent thinking of Lily was a chance for his own inner child to awaken, and yet, the fear of failure loomed like a storm cloud overhead. Resolute, Jonathan picked up the crutch and cradled it in his hands. Would Lily's vibrant artwork be eclipsed by his relentless ambition? Could he create a nurturing space for her, where she could explore her talents without the burden of judgment? With each thought, a flicker of determination ignited within him. This was a challenge far grander than any high-rise building he had ever designed. Determined to form a genuine connection, he began sketching ideas infused with the child's spirit he admired from afar. He envisioned a mural that celebrated resilience, an homage to both Lily and the crutch that had once been a limitation. With every stroke of his pencil, he felt the weight of his past judgment evaporate, replaced instead by the vivid imagination of a little girl who had overcome so much. His peers wouldn't understand, but that didn't matter anymore. Jonathan found clarity in creating something meaningful. As the sketches morphed into tangible plans, he thought of the impending competition. Would they see the artistry in his approach? Would he manage to elevate Lily's vision while navigating their mutual vulnerabilities? Each stroke on the page felt like a step forward, yet anxiety lingered. He had to confront those naysayers to find his own footing. The thoughts sent tremors of fear through him, yet those tremors fueled an inner resolve. As Jonathan lost himself in his sketches, the sun began to dip behind the horizon, casting hues of orange and purple across the sky, an artistic palette he admired. Yet with it came a realization. The deadline for the competition loomed closer, and he had not yet spoken to Lily. The moment of truth was at hand. Jonathan took a deep breath, the taste of determination filling his lungs. It was time to reach out, to share not just his plans but his newfound purpose. Would Lily embrace this new vision, or would the shadows of self-doubt haunt them both? The unexpected challenge lay ahead, a confrontation with both an eager young artist and his own frailties. Would he stand firm in his resolve, or would he falter when it mattered most? The tension tightened around him, each inhalation quickening. As he made his way to find Lily, he felt the laughter of his peers still echoing in his ears. But he understood he controlled the narrative of both their stories now. The turning point was near, and the time had come to face not only Lily's potential but his own hidden fears. With each step leading him closer toward her, he felt a surge of empowerment. But as he rounded the corner, uncertainty gnawed at him. Had he prepared himself for the confrontation that awaited? The moment was about to unfold. Jonathan rounded the corner, and there she was, Lily, a whirlwind of paint and laughter. Her small hands, splattered with colors, spoke of passionate fervor while the crutch leaned against a nearby tree, a quiet witness to her fervent spirit. He paused, absorbing the scene, and unease unraveled within him. Would his presence eclipse her joy? "Hey, Lily," he called, willing his voice to smooth over the jagged edges of anxiety. She turned, her face alight with the playful mischief that reminded him why he had come. "Mr. Jonathan! Look!" She pointed to a canvas beside her, where abstract shapes twisted into whimsical creatures. "I painted these. Do you like them?" His heart sank and soared simultaneously. She sought validation, and yet he felt like a thief. "They're incredible, Lily," he replied with as much sincerity as he could muster. "Really imaginative." The words tasted bittersweet on his tongue, laden with the weight of conflicting motives. Lily's eyes sparkled, but Jonathan's apprehensions darkened the colors of her enthusiasm. "I wanted to talk to you about a project I thought we could work on together," he said cautiously. Doubts knotted his stomach. Would sharing his idea appear controlling? Like building something? She asked, tilting her head. Her innocence tugged at his heartstrings, but he knew too well the pitfalls of good intentions. How could he guide her without stifling her creativity? Yes, sort of. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I was thinking about creating a mural that tells your story using your art as the foundation. It felt liberating to speak the words, yet fear lingered. He waited for a reaction, desperately hoping she could see his sincerity. Lily squinted thoughtfully before bouncing on the balls of her feet. I love murals. They tell great stories. Relief wrapped around him but was quickly sliced open by doubt. Her excitement ignited a flame in him, yet he questioned whether he had done enough introspection. What do you think we should include? What story do you want to tell? Lily's brow furrowed, and a dangerous silence draped over them. He was not just seeking to uplift her talent. He was inviting her to burden herself with choices he feared he lacked the capacity to support. Can we include my crutch? She asked suddenly, her voice shining through the uncertainty. It's part of me, and it means I'm strong. Jonathan's chest tightened. He had inadvertently stumbled upon a revelation. The very object that had become a symbol of limitation for him had woven itself into her narrative as a symbol of strength. Yes. Absolutely, he said, the affirmation igniting a sense of purpose he hadn't fully embraced until now. But could he be the architect of a mural that celebrated that strength without overshadowing Lily's essence? As they began brainstorming ideas together, Jonathan felt the boundary between mentor and student blur. He sketched her suggestions directly onto the sketchpad, embracing her childlike wonder. In that moment, he glimpsed the possibilities of collaboration, the warmth of shared creativity igniting an unexpected hope. But doubt remained. Would they attract ridicule from the critics? What if their ambitions faced derision, further shrouding them in contempt? The competition deadline loomed. He could feel the pressure seep through the crevices of their project, threatening to fuel insecurities. Decisions had to be made, and Jonathan realized he had to confront the specter of competition, both from outside and within. What if they don't get us? He asked Lily hesitantly, revealing the weak link in his armor. The prospect of vulnerability laid bare his fears. Lily looked at him seriously, her expression a clear reflection of profound insight. Then we just keep creating, Mr. Jonathan. We keep going until they understand. It's our story. It was an anchor amidst turbulent waves. Her words resonated deep within him. Their journey was about more than recognition. It was about the authenticity he had sought for so long. As the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows around them, Jonathan held on to that truth. He was not just a mentor, he was a participant in both Lily's and his own evolution. But just as optimism filled the air, the stark reminder of the competition pressed down. Jonathan felt the tension twist in his stomach again. Had they created something resilient enough to stand against the critical gazes ahead? With a deep breath, he prepared for their next steps, feeling both exhilaration and fear merge within him. They were on the precipice of something profound, a leap into the unknown that would ultimately challenge the very fabric of his identity. And yet, the very act of creating was a confrontation. Would he wholly embrace the risk, or retreat into safety when it mattered most? The answer hung in the air, heavy and electric, as he looked over at Lily, waiting for the next stroke of their shared destiny. Jonathan woke the next morning, the weight of the mural project pressing down on him more heavily than ever. The sunlight streamed through his window, illuminating dust motes that danced like his racing thoughts. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, contemplating the journey ahead of him. Today, they would meet again, and yet he felt as though he were standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into an abyss of unknowns. As he prepared for the day, his mind played back Lily's words, "We keep going until they understand. It's our story." The declaration resonated with a stubborn clarity. The narrative they wanted to weave wasn't just a reflection of her strength but also an echo of his own insecurities and past failures. In his earlier work, Jonathan had always played it safe. He crafted with precision, designing within the lines laid out by established expectations, afraid to step outside the norm. But did that thinking lead to true artistry? This was different. This was raw and vulnerable, a possibility for radical change. Stepping into the open air, he breathed in deeply, letting the crisp morning invigorate him. Today, he murmured to himself, I will face the challenge. At the park, the familiar scene welcomed him like an old friend, yet he felt a sense of impending confrontation. His heart raced as he approached the canvas. Lily was already at work, painting like she was channeling something divine. Her passion was infectious, but it also triggered an internal battle within him. Could he draw upon that same raw energy? Hey, Lily! He waved, trying to suppress the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. Mr. Jonathan! Look! She turned, her eyes ablaze with excitement. Holding up the bright colors she had chosen, it was as if her spirit was spilling out onto the canvas. I added flowers. They remind me of spring. Spring is a beautiful metaphor for renewal, he replied, genuinely intrigued. But that thought gave birth to another. The mural wasn't just about her story. It was about their stories intertwining, his past, her future. How often had life felt like an endless winter for him? The stark reality was that he had enclosed himself in a world made of muted tones and safe corners. Lily, can I ask you something? He ventured, trying to weight his words carefully. Anything, she encouraged, eager to share the canvas with him. What happens if the critics don't get it? If they can't see what we see? His voice trembled slightly, revealing more of his vulnerability than he had intended. Lily paused, paintbrush hovering above her canvas. Then that means we have to be stronger than their words. We'll show them. Her conviction pierced through Jonathan like a lightning bolt, illuminating hidden corners of his psyche. Right. Showing them. He felt the stirrings of determination ignite within him. As they moved forward, brainstorming scenes and symbols, Jonathan tapped into the creative well he had long shunned. The mural began to shape into something bold, a celebration of resilience. Each stroke was infused with their combined energy, lifting him out of the hesitation that had encased him for so long. Can we include your love for superheroes? He asked, recalling her animated stories of favorite comic book characters that embodied courage. Yes. Lily beamed. They show that being different can be strong. In that moment, he recognized the beautiful paradox: they were each other's mentors. She was teaching him the value of vulnerability, of embracing imperfections as facets of authenticity. He realized now that sharing risks was not weakness but a route to deeper connection. Halfway through the day, as shadows grew longer across the canvas, Jonathan noticed Lily lean heavily against her crutch, her face betraying a fleeting moment of fatigue. Are you okay? He asked, concern wrapping around his heart. I'm fine, she replied, although her voice was softer. Just a little tired. Jonathan felt guilt prick at him, wondering if he had pushed her too hard. It was vital that this process remain joyful, yet the looming deadline whispered reminders of harsh realities. Why don't we take a break? He offered. Let us talk about what this mural means to us, and how we want to show our story. Okay, she said, smiling as her eyes brightened again. As they settled on a nearby bench, Jonathan wrestled with the realization that facing those critics was only one part of their journey. The other was learning to trust each other in the creative process, an unfolding story filled with unpredictability much like life itself. But even as they shared laughter and ideas, a gnawing doubt crept back into Jonathan's mind. Would he have the endurance to sustain the brave artistry they were crafting? As they returned to the mural, staring at the multicolored abyss they were creating together, the question lingered. Could this be enough? The mural awaited their brush strokes, a blank canvas of compromise and creativity. Jonathan felt the weight of both anticipation and trepidation. He looked at Lily, their eyes locking in mutual understanding, as he contemplated whether they could truly reveal the strength within their stories. And just as vibrant possibilities floated in the air, the echo of doubt whispered again: how would they confront the first wave of critics that would soon descend upon them? Jonathan returned to the canvas with a swath of determination guiding each brush stroke. No longer merely an observer, he envisioned a world burgeoning with color and life, a stark contrast to the muted tones that had often suffocated his creativity. As he dipped his brush into the vibrant acrylics, he silently vowed to shield his insecurities behind the confidence blossoming within him. Lily's laughter rang in his ears as she debated the placement of a character from her favorite comic book. The walls that had confined him began to crack under the weight of their collaborative energy. Listening to her enthusiasm, he felt attenuated doubts ebbing away. This was not about perfection, it was about authenticity. He realized that vulnerability had become their greatest strength. Still, despite the growing camaraderie, a lingering anxiety shadowed him. The deadline loomed like an ominous storm cloud on the horizon. He had seen the volatile reactions of critics before. Their words could storm through his defenses, exposing his frail confidence. What if the fusion of their stories was not received with the applause he so desperately craved? With a deep breath, he seized the paintbrush again, channeling his doubt into bursts of color across the large canvas. "Let us do something bold here," he suggested suddenly, his voice infused with newfound resolve. "How about a superhero emerging from shadows, inspired by you? A metaphor for overcoming adversity?" Lily's eyes sparkled with inspired wonder. "Yes. She can rise with her crutch as both weapon and symbol of strength." Jonathan marveled at the brilliance of her idea. It encapsulated not just her journey but his as well. In every stroke, he was rediscovering himself. The artist who had forsaken risks for stability was morphing into one who understood the true power of embracing imperfection. With every swirl of paint, he churned out layers of self-discovery, unraveling fears that had held him back for so long. Yet, in the midst of creation, his revived confidence wavered. As the mural took shape, he found himself eyeing the canvas, fear creeping back in like a thief in the night. What if it wasn't enough? What if revealing their intertwined stories to the world only invited judgment? Each passing moment felt vital, ticking away like grains of sand through an hourglass. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" he asked, half conscious of his breath catching in his throat. Lily paused, a brush suspended in midair. "We're being true to ourselves," she asserted, the conviction in her voice piercing his uncertainty. "That counts more than what they think." Jonathan nodded, allowing her words to anchor him momentarily. But her assurance did little to stifle the internal chaos brewing inside. The art world could be unforgiving, a storm of opinions crashing harshly upon those daring to dream. "Let us face them together," he proposed suddenly, excitement intertwining with apprehension. "When the time comes, we'll stand by our work and our stories. If they can't see what we've done, then we'll keep showing them until they do." The flicker of resolve reignited within him, but he still felt fragile. He wrestled with the thought that perhaps it was easier to hide behind the safety of critiques than to stand exposed in their wake. Yet the image of Lily, strong and steadfast against the backdrop of their mural, breathed life into his nerves. She embodied not only her strength but also the resilience he longed to reclaim. Together, they returned to the canvas with renewed vigor, layering their experiences into the bright palette of their creation. As they worked side by side, every splatter of paint became a silent testament to their triumphs and struggles, of vivid narrative waiting to unfold. But as night began to fall, the undeniable reality settled in. Their first audience, a crowd of critics, awaited just beyond the horizon, eager to pounce. Jonathan glanced toward the darkening sky, a mixture of excitement and dread coiling in his chest once more. The moment to confront their fears was imminent. Would their mural echo their truths, or would it remain a beautiful failure in the eyes of the world? The fearless realization that awaited him loomed ever closer, and with it, the question nagged incessantly: could he transform the vulnerability of their journey into an unwavering strength amid judgment? The first rays of dawn seeped through the studio windows, unveiling the mural in all its splendor. Jonathan stood before it, a blend of awe and trepidation swirling within him. The colors were as vibrant as the thoughts racing through his head, each stroke of paint a heartbeat echoing the part of him he had long kept subdued. Yet doubt lurked at the corners of his mind, a residual whisper reminding him that vulnerability could lead to exposure. He had envisioned countless scenarios about the unveiling, but now, facing the mural, each potential reaction from the critics stung like icy winds. The thought of judgment, particularly from those he respected, not at him. Were they truly prepared to let their creation speak for itself? Jonathan sensed a dichotomy forming within. One part yearned for acceptance, while the other craved authenticity. Remember, we're telling a story. Lily's voice pierced his spiral of uncertainty. She had joined him quietly, eyes wide and gleaming with excitement. Her presence radiated strength, which grounded him just as their mural grounded his emotions. No matter what they think, it can't change what it means to us. Jonathan nodded, drawing a deep breath. He understood that art's truth was not always aligned with public opinion. Yet, the fear of ridicule felt visceral. He could almost hear the potential gasps of disbelief at their unconventional character, the bold decision to showcase strength through vulnerability. What if the critics saw only the crutch and not the triumphant spirit it represented? They risked revealing themselves in a climate of fear. The reality of the situation enveloped him. This was their moment, their true unveiling. He felt the walls he'd built around his heart flutter, threatening to crumble under the weight of the anticipation. Let us focus on why we created this, he suggested, attempting to channel his jittery energy into positivity. We wanted to inspire people to find their strength, just like we've found ours. The words hung in the air, offering a fragile promise of empowerment. Exactly! She exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. Every line speaks to the struggle and triumph. We expose our scars as badges of courage. But a deeper reckoning awaited. Just as they had faced the canvas, they must now face the critics. The dialogue they entered with their creation would define them more than any accolades could. A tumultuous mix of exhilaration and anxiety bubbled within. Jonathan turned his gaze back toward the mural. It was no longer just a project, it was a testament to their journey, encapsulating every moment of fear, courage, uncertainty, and resolve. Within those painted strokes lay the very essence of resilience, a metaphor for both his and Lily's paths. Let us give them a story to tell, he whispered, resolve crystallizing in his chest. It's time to confront what scares us most. He started to step back, readying himself for the inevitable confrontation. Lily brushed her fingers against the mural, her expression transforming into one of fierce determination. They stood on the precipice of a new chapter, one fueled by growth through confrontation. As they awaited the critics, apprehension clouded Jonathan's mind, but within the storm, flickers of determination ignited. He would not let fear dictate his narrative. But beyond the immediate tension of judgment lay an unknown truth waiting to be unearthed. Could their work forge a path not just for acceptance, but for understanding, an emotional bridge that connected their shared vulnerability to the hearts of others? As the moment to reveal their creation loomed nearer, questions of depth and connection began to seep into his consciousness, urging him to consider even greater stakes. Jonathan's heart raced. The critics were just moments away from entering. He could feel the weight of impending scrutiny. Could their art transcend the judgment, and resonate on a deeply human level? The door creaked open, and a group of critics stepped into the studio, their sharp eyes scanning the vibrant mural before them. Jonathan felt the air shift, a palpable current of expectation humming through the room. The quiet murmurs began immediately, dissecting their creation before it had a chance to breathe. A wave of nausea swept over Jonathan. It was an involuntary response to the storm of judgment brewing in his gut. He fought for composure, reminding himself of the purpose behind every brushstroke. Yet their pointed questions sent jabs of uncertainty into his thoughts. Could their story withstand scrutiny? Would the emotions they poured into the mural translate beyond the canvas? Lily remained steady beside him, her presence offering an anchor against the tide of mounting anxiety. But Jonathan was painfully aware of his vulnerability. This was more than an artistic representation, it was a revelation of their identities, their experiences laid bare for the world to evaluate. The lead critic, an imposing figure with a reputation for brutal honesty, stepped forward. She scrutinized the mural closely, tilting her head as if trying to decode every hue and pattern. What exactly do you intend to convey with this piece? Her question echoed like a challenge. Jonathan swallowed hard. He wanted to say something profound, but the words staggered in his mind, caught between inspiration and fear. Instead, he opened his mouth, watching as a trembling confession emerged. We want viewers to see the strength in vulnerability. It's about recognizing our fears as part of our journey, showing that the crutches we sometimes rely on can represent resilience. A flicker of curiosity passed through the critic's expression, momentarily softening her steely facade. Jonathan felt a rush of hope. Maybe his honesty could bridge the chasm of doubt. But she wasn't finished. And what if they see only the fracture? What if they view this artistic bravery as a crutch rather than a triumph? That question shattered the momentary confidence swirling within him. Jonathan's heart raced. The fear was back, gnawing at his resolve. He kicked himself inwardly. But then he remembered why they had created this mural. It was to forge connections, to speak truths often left unspoken. Stepping forward, Jonathan embraced the challenge, leaning into the fear rather than running from it. Then it's on us to guide them through our narrative. It's imperative to construct understanding, to show how these very fractures have led us to rebirth. The air thickened with a mixture of tension and anticipation. He could feel the weight of the moment. Portal. This was not simply an unveiling. It was the negotiation of his identity. Critics began whispering again, their discussions morphing from judgment to contemplation. Jonathan felt an unfamiliar stirring within, the realization that maybe this confrontation wasn't just about their art, but about confronting his own fears of acceptance and rejection. Lily's eyes sparkled with pride, a silent recognition passing between them. She shared his belief that art could transcend mere visuals, sparking deep dialogue within the hearts of viewers. As they moved through the critiques, deeper discussions emerged. Jonathan felt himself growing in the process. Each interaction chipped away at the lingering shadows of his self-doubt. He began to engage not just as an artist but as a storyteller, advocating for the very humanity in their work. But as the session continued, it became clear this was just the beginning. Their mural had ignited a fire of inquiry, but could it stand up to the heat of true scrutiny? Bubbles of excitement mixed with caution fizzed in his stomach, propelling him closer to an uncharted territory. The conversation shifted again. A new question loomed larger than before. What if their mural prompted a personal journey for others, compelling them to confront their own fears? With this possibility dancing on the horizon, Jonathan felt the flames of determination surge within him. But would that connection be enough to cement their legacy? Would their vulnerability resonate beyond the studio and inspire genuine change? As the critics began to deliberate, Jonathan braced for whatever revelations awaited him. He couldn't help but ponder what it would take to dismantle the last barriers that plagued his heart. The moment came when an unexpected voice from the back of the room rose above the others. "Have you considered how this piece might change you as individuals?" Jonathan's pulse quickened. What if the moment for personal transformation wasn't merely inspired by external validation, but ignited from within? How would he navigate this landscape of new possibilities? And what would the next chapter of his journey entail? The course was set, but he was yet unaware of the depth of the river he was about to navigate. Jonathan stood at the precipice of contemplation, the critic's question reverberating in his mind like a melody that refused to fade. The studio walls seemed to close in on him, each inch laden with the weight of his introspection. Outside, the bustling city hummed with life, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere inside. What did it mean to be transformed by one's own work? Did vulnerability bleed into their very essence, reshaping them in ways he had yet to understand? As thoughts swirled like paint mixing on a palette, he felt both excitement and dread. It was an invitation to dig deeper within himself, to confront feelings he had long buried under layers of ambition and fear. When Lily placed a hand on his shoulder, he flinched slightly but immediately sought comfort in her touch. "You okay?" she whispered, her voice soft yet laced with concern. Jonathan forced a nod, but inside self-doubt still flickered like a candle in a gusty wind. He wrestled with the realization that the true value of their art might lie not only in the audience's reactions but in how they, too, would evolve. With a sudden shift in the critic's demeanor, the tension morphed from inquisitive to interrogative. The lead critic turned again, her gaze piercing. "And what are you prepared to sacrifice in this journey of self-discovery? Art demands more than just canvas and paint, it requires everything of you." The words stung, provoking a mixture of fear and inspiration. He resented the implications of giving up parts of himself, yet an inner voice urged him to embrace the challenge. If shedding his old self meant stepping into authenticity, perhaps that was a path worth exploring. It means being honest, even if it means facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves, he replied, feeling a newfound conviction fueling his courage. It's about dismantling the barriers we've built, not just around our art, but around our identities. If we can't truly explore who we are, then how can we expect others to find depth in our mural? Lily beamed, recognizing his resolve. The murmurs among the critics resumed, this time morphing into a dialogue rather than just critique. For the first time, Jonathan realized he hadn't just defended their work intellectually. He had invited others to witness his journey of self-realization in the most intimate ways. But just as he felt a spark of triumph, another critic chimed in with a sharp tone, "Courage is commendable, but behind that courage, what insecurities lurk? What aspects of yourselves are you afraid will be exposed?" This question struck hard, a direct hit that exposed the center of his turmoil. Jonathan took a breath, a clear line forming between the two realms of scrutiny, art and the self. "I've always struggled to feel enough, to think that what I create keeps pace with my aspirations. There's fear in embracing imperfection, anxiety in unveiling my truth, and a lifetime of unprocessed doubts," he admitted, vulnerability spilling from his lips like a fresh stroke on their canvas. The atmosphere shifted. The critics exchanged glances, many appeared intrigued, while others remained skeptical. Jonathan felt the urge to run, but he pushed against it. There was power in being authentic, however terrifying it might feel. Lily's reassuring grip tightened, her warmth instilling a strength that bolstered him against the doubts whispering at the edges of his consciousness. In confronting his fears, he began to dismantle a fragile wall that had long shielded his insecurities. A crack had opened, and he felt determination swelling within. What would happen when they embraced this transformative path? Would their quest for authenticity lead to revelations about their art, and ultimately themselves? As the discussions intensified, a thought nagged at Jonathan's mind. Perhaps true change was the ultimate goal of their creative journey. He could almost picture the horizon ahead painted with potential and possibility. But would the world accept the raw truth they dared to share? As he steeled himself for the potential fallout, Jonathan realized they had stepped into an uncertain future, a future where their mural could resonate far beyond aesthetic appreciation and dive deep into the core of human experience. And more importantly, he wondered, what pieces of himself awaited discovery as he continued this extraordinary journey? The discussions continued to swirl around him, each voice lifting and fading like notes of a fractured song. Jonathan felt himself standing at the edge of a vast emotional landscape, grappling with the echoes of his own honesty. The room pulsed with energy, yet the moment seemed to warp around him, expanding and contracting, creating a space where hope and fear coexisted. What struck him with newfound clarity was not just the weight of the critic's words but the realization that he was not merely a defendant in this discourse. He was an essential player in this narrative of transformation. The idea that their art was a reflection of their innermost battles, the delving into their authentic selves, ignited a flicker of ambition that pushed against the shadows in his mind. He sensed Lily's presence beside him, her resolve bolstered by his. There was a mutual understanding that their journey exceeded personal limits. They were embarking on something larger than themselves. "Jonathan," she whispered, breaking through the noise. "What if we create a piece that literally embodies this rawness? Something that showcases our fears and vulnerabilities?" "The mural experiences itself as we do," he replied, warmed by her enthusiasm. "If we bare our souls, if we're not afraid of the chaos we create, it might resonate in ways we haven't even imagined." The possibility crackled between them, urging him to envision the mural as not just a physical creation but a visceral connection to humanity. Yet the critic's earlier words gnawed at him. Sacrifice loomed as a heavy specter. What were they truly willing to lose in pursuit of this artistic honesty? Jonathan's thoughts drifted toward the implications: personal relationships, the fear of ridicule, their standing in the art community. The fear subsided, only to be replaced by a different kind of anxiety, What if they poured everything into this venture, and it was met with indifference? His gaze swept the room, locking momentarily with that of the lead critic. What lay hidden in her eyes? Was she an ally or an adversary? Her discerning expression suggested she held the key to either their salvation or ruin. Ignoring the pull of doubt, he decided he would embrace uncertainty. What if, he began, instead of fearing judgment, we used it to fuel our work? What if we take the darkest parts of ourselves and make them the foundation of our art? It felt like a declaration, a call to arms for both his artistic journey and personal evolution. Lily's response was instantaneous, her enthusiasm igniting. Let us not just be artists. Let us be storytellers of our experience, compelling others to face the darkest corners of their lives too. The proposition hovered between them, a golden thread weaving a tapestry of opportunity. If they channeled their authenticity, perhaps each brushstroke could convert their collective fears into something tangible and transformative. But even as the idea blossomed, doubts rippled in Jonathan's mind. Could he peel back enough layers to expose the rawness required? He had constructed an identity around his success and perfectionism, shedding that could open up vulnerabilities he had sheltered for decades. The notion of transparency became both liberating and frightening. What if the private Jonathan remained unworthy under the gaze of the public? There was a risk, and with the risk came the possibility of failure. Still, the thought of retreating into his old ways felt far less appealing than pushing forward into the uncertainty. As the critics' discussions turned toward them, Jonathan felt a sense of urgency. It was time to act. Defining moments awaited him, and within that decision resided the power to reshape his identity, not just as an artist but as a person. He turned to Lily, the unspoken understanding manifesting as they shared the same thought. The time had come to confront their most significant challenge. Taking a deep breath, Jonathan was prepared to initiate the next step in their collaboration. Held within this epiphany was the promise of profound transformation. But a question lingered, tightening around his chest like a vice. What hidden truths would emerge once they began this deeper exploration? With the weight of anticipation pressuring against him, Jonathan knew this was just the beginning. Now, he stood on the brink, ready to dive headfirst into the messy realm of true exposure. Each brushstroke seemed to challenge him further, daring him to unravel not just their mural but the very fabric of his own identity. What lay beneath the surface was still waiting to be uncovered, but could he truly face it? The unveiling of their mural was a moment of reckoning. Jonathan stood beside Lily, both hearts pounding in unison as they faced the once critic-indifferent crowd. The mural pulsed with life, its vibrant colors encapsulating their intertwined narratives: vulnerability, resilience, and authenticity woven together into a tapestry of artistry. As the first viewer stepped closer, Jonathan felt the electric current of anxiety wash over him. Would they grasp the essence of what lay before them? Would they see the crutch as not a symbol of weakness, but as a vessel of strength? A childlike wonder flickered in his heart, igniting memories of his own unfiltered creativity, the very essence he had nearly forsaken in his quest for outward success. When the critic who had posed the hardest questions approached, Jonathan held his breath, feeling the weight of her gaze like a heavy cloak. But instead of disapproval, her lips formed a small smile, and she turned to him. "You've captured the raw truth here," she admitted, her voice resonating with sincerity. "It speaks of duality. While we fear what we expose, it is also what makes us human." A wave of relief surged through Jonathan. Her acknowledgement felt like a validation of not just the artwork but of his own transformation. In that moment, he understood the power of art not as a mere reflection of aspiration but as a conduit for personal evolution. As critics deliberated among themselves, Jonathan felt a different sense of urgency rise within him. Sharing their story was not just about seeking validation, it was about encouraging others to confront their narratives. The realization solidified within him like the last stroke on the mural: true success would come from fostering vulnerability. What if we offer workshops, creating a space for others to express their own stories through art? Lily suggested, excitement dancing in her eyes. We could guide them to find their voice, just like we did together. The idea struck Jonathan with clarity. They had a unique opportunity to shift the paradigm of art, a chance to cultivate communities where people could tackle their fears as part of their processes. The thought felt revolutionary. Just as their mural had enabled him to reveal layers of himself, this outreach could empower individuals grappling with their shadows. "Yes!" he exclaimed, the words spilling from his lips with an exuberance that startled him. "Imagine the worlds of creativity we could unleash! Collaborating with others could foster authentic dialogues about their vulnerabilities. It could set the stage for healing." With each new idea exchanged, their confidence grew exponentially, fueled by the unexpected resonance of their mural. They found themselves proposing workshops, engaging commissions, opening spaces for artistic exploration laden with love and raw transparency. Each proposition felt like a testament to their personal growth, indelibly marking the evolution that had begun with an innocent crutch leaning against a tree. Days turned into weeks, and the initial murmur of their mural blossomed into a chorus of inspiration in the art community. Articles were written, interviews conducted, and the notoriety blossomed not merely from the artwork but from the authenticity that emanated from every interaction. They became celebrated for boldness and the vulnerability that refracted from their creation, proving that purpose and passion could intertwine dynamically. Jonathan knew that this journey was more than an artistic venture. It was a pilgrimage towards self-discovery and connection. The fears he had once battled receded, and in their place blossomed a profound sense of competence. He had dared to journey into both art and mentorship, unveiling a dedicated resolve to bring out creativity in others, to guide them as a trusted collaborator rather than an authoritative figure seeking recognition. It was exhilarating, grounding him in a solidity he hadn't felt before. The shadows of inadequacy and expectation that had loomed over his shoulders began to dissolve, replaced by a burgeoning identity rooted in authenticity. With Lily at his side, Jonathan stood poised on the brink of their next chapter, a sense of solid confidence enveloping him. "We did it," he said as they surveyed the mural one last time before leaving for their workshop. "We've transformed, and this is just the beginning." Lily grinned, an infectious spectacle of joy. "Together, we're doing great things, Mr. Jonathan." And in those words, Jonathan realized they had achieved more than they ever imagined. They were not just secure in their identities, but empowered to inspire countless others to face their own fears in pursuit of self-expression. The mural was not just their legacy, it was a living, breathing testament of personal evolution, reminding all who gazed upon it of the strength in overcoming and the beauty found in vulnerability. He smiled and stepped forward into a grand future, honoring the crutch as both a tool of support and a symbol of a shared journey. This was the true fulfillment of his aspirations, aligning his professional and personal life into a coherent load of meaning and purpose. He had leaned in, faced the doubts, and emerged transformed, championing not just his narrative, but fostering resilience in all those they would inspire. Jonathan had finally proven resilient, recognized for the transformation he accomplished alongside a vibrant young artist who had reignited his spirit. Life was waiting, arms wide open. You need to subscribe now to our channel and not miss the upcoming exclusive emotional stories that unfold from journeys like these. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and keep the spark of inspiration alive. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. What would you do on this journey of self-discovery? Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. The power of personal stories is in the sharing. Let us spread it.